Well, my name is Rex Hausmann. I'm one of the directors here at the Hausmann Millworks. I'd call the gallery director. Since 1976, we have grown where we're planted. The iteration that everybody knows now is the Hausmann Millworks, a creative community, which is comprising about 55, 60 studios with over 60 artists and craftsmen. If you include all the people that work with people, over 80 to 90 people in the buildings at once usually. We started very humbly with 2 studios and then grew to about 4 and 10 and 12 and 20 and 30, and now we have 50 plus. Our real core is grow where you're planted, which means you start with what you have, and then organically, like the garden that's in the center of our buildings, it grows. So some of our plants here are as old as the program itself. The bougainvillea is almost 16 years old. I myself grew up in these buildings since I was a kiddo, sweeping floors for my dad's company and my mom's company, and grew up building with my brother until I decided to become an artist. As a family, we've fostered this community, but to understand the community first, we want to look a little back to Renee and Jean Hausmann and their history as Hausmann Hausmann Design Company, which focused on excellence. It did the moot court at St. Mary's University, which second generation I ended up doing a painting for St. Mary's for their big gala. Also did the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C. And then grew the company here from 2 guys in a shop after Trinity to 40 or 50 employees that fed their families.
We had about 30 years of architectural woodwork experience here, and as Rex said, 40 or 50 employees for those 30 years. We did specialty architectural woodwork all over. We went as far as Saudi Arabia, where we did the ambassadorial residences there. We did work in Mexico. We did work all over the U.S. The Folger was sort of special because the Folger Shakespeare Library, it's right behind the Supreme Court. It's a really monumental interior in that building, designed in 1929 and by the top architects in the United States. And in 1989, we did renovations and additions to that building, which are still there. It's a really lovely and unique space. We did a lot of work in woodworking, panels, veneering, specialty things for airlines and for restaurants and for houses and for just a wide variety of things, courts and embassies as well. So we were dealing with architects literally all over the United States to turn out premium quality architectural woodwork. So that's sort of our background. And then in about 2008, we started paring that down. 2009 and 2010, we closed. And by that time, we had already started, thank you God, what we now know as the Millworks, with Rex coming down here and putting a studio in the buildings. Then David Almaguer added, and a metal worker added, and a couple of carpenters added. And about that time, I was sitting out in the car in front of the buildings, and God just said, "Hey, dummy, look what's supposed to happen here." And it did.
We've been fortunate to be a part of the creative aspects of San Antonio in terms of dealing with architects who are artists in their own right, designers. That was part of who we had in these very walls that we dealt with on a day-to-day basis in trying to take their concepts of beautiful architecture and design and putting it into reality with Jean's engineering abilities and actual building. And then you have someone like Rex who's been exposed to that throughout his life, and he's been able to take all of that and assimilate it into a very prolific artistic career in fine art painting. And if you were to imagine these walls without any of these fabulous paintings that surround us, you have a just blank white wall. And that is not what makes us human beings. We respond to color and we respond to texture. And these things that come together is what is called beauty. And because the element of the artistic mind is not necessarily gifted to all people, we can at least appreciate that. And that's where my role comes in at the Millworks. That is that I appreciate and have always appreciated the creative personality. The situation with creatives to some degree is that they don't necessarily have sometimes the ability to go on a very straight trajectory, to take all of this bottled up talent and then share it with the world in a way that makes it possible to take themselves to another level, even to a level of sustaining financially their home life. Do we, as Hausmann Millworks, actually train people up to do exactly that as prolific artists? No, we don't say that's our identity at Millworks, but what we hope to do and have always hoped to do with a genuine and honest forthrightness is to provide an environment that is conducive to them feeling affirmed and taking those creative talents to another level on a day-by-day basis by just doing the hard work that it takes to establish themselves both in their own mind and also within this community locally and regionally and even on a national basis or internationally.
At the mill, what we build into like who we are as a community, kind of big goals and little goals. So our little goal programs are like with Credit Human Southtown or with the Ecumenical Center of San Antonio or the Breckenridge Park Conservancy or Mission Heritage Partners. Working with the missions, working with UTSA, working with the McNay, working with all these different cultural institutions to either shoot for an exhibition or an annual gala or be part of something. We make that integral into the mill. None of it's on paper, but it's more like an organic form as it continues to grow. Hopefully, you being engaged in that community, in that local sphere of influence, creates a stability. Like it creates a repeating pattern. Like, oh, okay, I'm doing this, or I'm in this and then this. That's kind of on our local level. And then proceeds from those local things help sustain both them and our creatives. We've done some really major projects that have really grabbed the eye of a lot of international attention and long sustained attention, not just like 1 year or 2 years, like multiple years. We're on year 16 now. Right now we're taking a group to Spain to tour the Prado with Dr. Marcus Burke of the Hispanic Society of America. We took a group of 35 artists up to New York to tour the Hispanic Society of America for 12 hours and the Metropolitan. We also did like a docents tour of the Met with the docents who worked at the Met as artists.
We have a film that's a favorite of ours that the guy has really one phrase in the home film, and he says, if you want to be successful, you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it, and then you do it again. So we find that those artists who really do that, even if they start from sort of a meager position, get to be real good. Mm-hmm. And that's not just one or two, that's a whole scad of them. And that's a favorite of ours, that happens.